Hi guys, my name is Kashmira and I'm an architect. On this channel, I make content related to architecture and design. I studied architecture in India and then I went to the United States to get my master's degree in pure architecture. In today's video, I'm going to walk you through my master's portfolio, which helped me secure my first job in the United States, and also I won first place in my university in Georgia Institute of Technology. So let's get started. So one thing that I learned from my mentor or my professor was that your portfolio should tell a story. It should convey a story. It should not only put your work into picture, but also it should grab the person's attention within a matter of seconds. This is something that I have also mentioned in my previous video. In case you haven't looked at it, please go and check it out. It is about my bachelor's portfolio, and you will notice there is so much difference between my bachelor's portfolio and my master's portfolio. That may very well be because the way architecture is taught in India and the way architecture is taught in America is so starkly different from each other. But at the same time, I think it is really wonderful that I got to learn both and find a balance within both of them to make me a better architect. Now, if you would look at the first page of my portfolio, I have kept it very simple, very straightforward. It is just my name, selected work, and it has a picture of my 3D printed model, which you will get to see further ahead. And I wanted it to be simple and minimal so that a person looking at it would be able to focus on that image itself and will not get distracted by too much work and will have their eyes fixated on that particular area. So the next page of my portfolio is just one simple line, and it just says architecture is a new idea every day. Then I have an index which clearly represents all the information that I have inside the portfolio itself. My portfolio is more like a book or a magazine as opposed to something that I had previously. It's very small. It's not even A4 size. It's little smaller than A4 size, and I think the reason I decided to go with this size was that when I handed it over to a possible employer for a full-time job, it is very easy for somebody to just hold it in their hand and just go through it. That's the reason why I decided to go with this size. As I had previously mentioned in my previous video, my portfolio, I like to keep it like a magazine, so it is printed on the front side as well as the back side. So that is just a little bit of information that I thought will be useful for you as well when you are making your portfolio. Make sure that you can convey as much information as you can and you keep the person who you are talking to interested. So yes, that is about the index or the second page of my portfolio. Also on the left side, I have an image of a model. That model was really big in size. The next page is my resume. I don't really want to showcase that on YouTube, not right now. And here is my first and my latest project which I did. It is my final project, or what you would like to call thesis, which I did during my master's. It is called filigree figuring. A fun fact about this particular professor was that he used to work with Zaha Hadid previously, and he had a lot of, like, if you would really talk to him or get to understand his work, he had those layers of ideas which Zaha Hadid portrayed. So during our masters, we had something called as R&D, that is research and design. So this particular studio was an R&D studio. So the first phase of that particular project was research. That was done in a group of two. So I had paired up with one of my classmates and we did the research part, and the design part we separated and we did our own design. Now, since this video is more about designing your portfolio and not so much about the project itself, I'm not going to go into much of depth. It basically was about us studying a little bit of these things called as carpet pages, which was designed during the Celtic times. So we studied Celtic knotwork. It's something that is really complicated. And then we studied a lot of carpet pages, which you can see displayed somewhere on the screen right now. And we found out certain elements that were repetitive in many carpet pages, and then we deciphered them, and then we put them together on sheets, and we identified certain elements which could be transferred into, let's say, a vertical face or a vertical facade. So in this page I just have a little bit of the elements which we identified, and on the next place you will notice that how we have identified these elements and then put them together in a vertical format. In terms of how we went forward with it is that we used Rhino for this particular project. So 70 to 80% of the work in this project is done in Rhino, and then of course I transferred it into Revit. One very interesting part about how we approach this particular design studio is that we went the opposite. So in architecture, whenever we are designing something, what we do is first we are given a site and the context, and then we go ahead and design the building in plan, and then in section, and then in elevation, and then we do the detailing part. But in this project we went reverse. We first identified what would be the architectural detail or the component or the facade, and then we went in the reverse direction where we decided to identify a site. So we were given complete freedom when it comes to selection of site. I studied this project when I was in the US, and I selected my site somewhere in Europe, I think somewhere in Ireland. Yes, it is in Dublin, Ireland. And I decided to identify that particular site was because it was located near Trinity College, which is a college which is an institute in Dublin, Ireland, where they have preserved this book of Kells, which has all this information about Celtic knotwork. It's really funny because before I started working on this project, I had no idea about Celtic knotwork. I had seen certain elements like that in certain pictures or images, but I did not know that it was something that was done in so much depth and there was so much information provided about it. And it was really wonderful to look at these carpet pages. And if I ever go to Europe and if I ever go to Dublin, I'm definitely going to seek permission to look at this book of Kells if they let me. That will be something that will be very exciting. So yes, this is the second page, and on this particular page you will see on the left I have shown a line diagram, a very simple and a minimal line diagram which shows information about the site and where it is located. And then it shows that there are these 7 roads which come together in this particular area, but you get this very tiny, very small site which I thought would be very interesting to locate my building in. So here you will see a Google Earth image and where my building is. It's I found it very interesting and challenging at the same time to have such a very small building. Usually when you think of thesis or when you think of a final design project, you think of something that is going to be very huge, but for this particular project I decided to go with a very small site and a very small building. So here you will be able to see some of the plans. Again, since it was a museum or an exhibition center, and I wanted the building itself to be the museum or the exhibition center, as we have seen in our Indian tradition, where we have these very beautiful carved out temples where you have so much detailing on one pillar or a column or the ceiling. So I thought, why not have the architecture itself to be the area for exhibition or for viewing. So on the next sheet, what I have shown here is, first thing I would like you to understand is this particular area entirely was designed in Rhino. I basically took lines and then I made them into 3D form, and then what I am trying to show here is that from a carpet page I have derived this particular pattern, and then we have our regular architectural floors which are just very simple, and then due to the intrusion of these walls, let's say, into our architectural floors, we have to make these cutouts, and of course there will be cutouts for the staircase or the restrooms and things like that. And this is the final product, which I'm actually very proud of, because I put so much effort into this project. Like, I remember I had not slept for 3 days straight, which is actually very common in architecture, but it was a very challenging project, and also very rewarding at the same time, because I remember I got a standing ovation from 16 jury members, which was so nice to feel, which was a very wonderful feeling. And then here you will see that I have extruded the buildings for a person to get a better idea of the project. Here I have also done a lot of work in Photoshop. So the way that I went into this is that I from Rhino I exported the facade into Revit, and then in Revit I used the section box and I cut out the building in 4 different parts. And then when I went to Photoshop, I placed these human figures, and I placed this building in such a way that it would look like it is extruded, or it's like we call it isometric or axonometric view, whatever you would like to call it. So if you don't know, isometric is something that is at a 30-60 degree angle, and an axonometric is at a 45 degree angle. And then this is just the architectural section from Revit. Finally I took out the architectural section into AutoCAD and placed these hatches, because for whatever reason my Revit model was not giving me the final end product that I wanted. So I went into AutoCAD, and then I went back into Photoshop and I placed these human figures. So yes, as architecture students or architects, we know we put so much, we just keep going through one software into another to get our final product. And this is a rendering, and yes, these are some of the interior renderings. All these renderings are done in Revit. As always, it was very last minute. I think this particular rendering, especially the one on the left, was done just it took 5 hours for this render to come out, and just as soon as I finished this rendering, I went into the printing shop to print out my final thesis project. Now, one thing I would like for you to understand in terms of the portfolio is that there is very little amount of information conveyed on every single page. That in fact is done very intentionally to convey as little information as you can, so that that render or that view or that section or that plan is the complete grabs the complete attention of anybody looking at it. Again, we are going through renders. I like to play with the sun, so you get these really beautiful shadows. And then here you have glass. So you know, you have this person walking in and they are going through this area, and then here you have a terrace, and then from glass they look outside and they look at this concrete structure. Yes, one interesting thing is that I thought of this entire building to be made out of concrete and glass. A little bit of brutalism, you might call it, but yes, that's how I went forward with it. Okay, so it looks like I blabbered for a really long time about my design, which I was not supposed to do, since this video is about my portfolio. So Coming back to my portfolio, this is the next project. Now if you will notice, I have again followed the same design strategy, that I have put the site on the left side and then I have put a little bit of the diagrams on the right. These diagrams were basically done to show a little bit of the topography and the subdivision. This was more like a urban design project. The site was located in Atlanta in Georgia. This was a teamwork project. It was done by the three of us. It was a friend, my good friend Yvette and Jingy and me. The three of us participated in this group activity to make this project happen. And then I have the site render, and of course I have the index where I have information, and then of course if you have watched my previous video, you might get an idea that I really like to make these diagrams, and also I really like to represent information in the form of a legend 1 2 3 4 5, because you really don't have enough space to write anything inside when you're making a portfolio, especially when it is that small. And then we have this theater which took us a really long time to render. I remember all three of us worked on this theater for a really long time, and this was completely done in Revit. Yes, if I remember correctly, yes, this is again Revit. So we created these diagrams through Revit. Again, we used section box and then we represented this information in Revit. And then we have this render on the left side, and then we have this diagram which shows the information. Again, everything is in Revit, and you have this index here. And then this is a sectional elevation. I really loved this book called The Manual of Section by the author. His name is displayed somewhere on the screen. I was so impressed by his work, and so I decided that for this project, no matter what happens, I'm going to have a sectional elevation. Because come to think of it, when you are actually inside a building, you are more into the section as opposed to plan. I remember in India we were given so much emphasis in the planning, and of course plan is important, but if you are actually inside the building, you are using it sectionally and not in plan. Of course circulation is a big part of a building, but you are more inside the building in sections. So I remember in my master's, our professors would always say that the most important drawing that you produce is the section, and I really had to break out of that mindset, our Indian mindset, that plan is the most important drawing, and I had to teach myself that, hey, you know, it's the section that is the most important drawing and it's not the plan. In my bachelor's, I remember what I had done and what most of us did was that we made the section at the very last end before printing the sheet, because we did not think the section was that important, and due to that we did not have a lot of play in terms of the levels, unless you had a contoured site, which is very rare in today's day and age, because now they make everything flat. They make everything flat in the US, that is a law there, and even now in India we are no longer, at least in Maharashtra, we are no longer allowed to have construction of residences on a hill or a slope. So they just make it flat. So the way to enhance the building and to get that play of levels, you can do that in section through architecture, of course. And then again, this is another sectional elevation of the proposed theater. It is you will notice that here we designed the orchestra, and then you have the performance area here, and then you have the seating, and then we also thought of it that it can open up into the outside. I was really impressed by this work of an architecture firm called Diller, Scofidio plus Renfro, and they have something similar to this which they have designed in New York. So we kind of went ahead with that, and of course here you can see another picture of our 3D printed tiny little techno art hub. It was literally like this size after we 3D printed it, and it came out really cute, but unfortunately we were not allowed to keep it. Our college has the rights to keep it, so they have displayed it somewhere in the university. It's still there somewhere, I don't know, but we were really happy with our end result, especially the theater. We put so much effort into that design. And then there were these other two buildings which were next to the theater, which we thought could really be useful in adaptive reuse. So this is again a section, a model which will give you an idea about how the building is currently and how we thought we can enhance the building. One interesting thing about Atlanta, Georgia is that downtown Atlanta is a very abandoned area. There is a lot of risk of crime. There is a very high crime rate. I remember when I was living in Atlanta, I used to live in Midtown, and we were given very strict instructions by our professors that you are not going alone in downtown Atlanta. If you guys are going to downtown Atlanta, you have to go in groups of at least 10 to 15 people. So actually the entire reason for this project being given to the entire class was that how we are going to refurbish downtown Atlanta. So this is the final building. This is some really long building which we thought could be modified into something like this. Now this is another project which I did in my master's. This was we called it reconnecting the urban fabric of DeKalb Avenue. DeKalb Avenue is basically this street that goes parallel to the railway line, and this railway line is dividing the city of Atlanta into two parts. Now again, if you notice, I have the similar kind of thing where I have diagrams to represent the information which I understand, and then I have the Google Earth image on the left, and I'll just quickly go around the information which I have represented here. And then I have diagrams. I really I used to like to make diagrams a lot, but they take up a lot of time though. And then I have this beautiful site render. Again, this was done in a group of two. So you have the site plan here. So my teammate, she basically took the Google Earth image, and she placed our Photoshop image on top of that, and she adjusted our buildings in such a fashion that you won't be able to really make out whether it is a Google Earth image or a Photoshop image. I think she did a fantastic job. And then yes, I did a lot of work on the sections. Basically our idea was to join these two areas in the form of a bridge from above and then a bridge from below. So we have cut a section from here, and we have cut another section from here. Again, if you will notice, the emphasis is given more to the drawings and kept the portfolio very simple. The background is also completely white, so that the drawings are given more importance as opposed to conveying too much information, which I did during my bachelor's. It would, my friend used to say it, this has become over designed now, Kashmira. You need to under design it during my bachelor's. So I tried to under design my portfolio, and I think it kind of worked. And then this is a little bit of housing project which we did. This is again a diagram which shows how this project was made. And again, this is inspired by the manual of section, and I have a sectional elevation here, and the information that I'm trying to convey here is that it has a lot of terraces, and due to this people, my hope is that people will actually talk to their neighbors. And here you will see a Revit render. Again, this is all in Revit. This is another 3D printed model, and then you have Revit elevations here. I think I've kept the shadows on, and I have taken shaded in Revit. And now this is the final design project which I would like to show here. This was actually done just before my filigree figuring studio. This was again a professor called Daniel Burlikin, who had worked with Zaha Hadid previously. and we followed a similar kind of a technique where we went opposite to what our architectural studio teaches us. So we designed the detail first, and then we went and we selected the site, and then we made our design. So here we did a lot of research. This was again a research and design studio. I worked with my friend Ketki, and we studied something called as smocking technique. Smocking is basically this fabric design technique which was used somewhere in Europe, and we tried out different smocking patterns. We actually sat there, we bought fabric, and we stitched fabric in such a way that we got these results. And then we studied about how the thread would move in order to generate this pattern. And it's very interesting to see that once we got all these patterns, the next step was to find a way to get these patterns on something that is hard, because ultimately if we are designing a facade, it needs to be hard, so you can't have a facade made out of fabric. So what we started doing is we identified these elements in how this was manipulated with thread, and then we started cutting out cardboard and we started sticking cardboard together, and we generated this shell pattern. Then we went and studied something called as living hinge. So if you are not familiar with living hinge, you can just search somewhere on YouTube what is a living hinge, and you will find out that there is this way to manipulate wood in such a way that you can actually bend it. And so we first tried this living hinge pattern on cardboard or chipboard. In the US they call cardboard chipboard. So we tried it on chipboard, and then we did these different kind of patterns through a laser cutter. We had access to a lot of technology there, of course, so we used a laser cutter. And then we came up with all these different patterns, and then the last step was to see how it would go around a building. So we used first we tried a cylindrical form, and we tried basically covered the cylindrical form with what we had cut out. Then we tried a rectangular form, and then another cylindrical form, and now if you look at this is the final product, which is actually cut out of metal. So yes, we used the metal jet cutter. If you're not familiar with it, it was very something that I was very awestruck by, that water can actually cut metal. Like, water is so strong that you can actually cut metal with it. So we cut out metal, and then it was a matter of how the elevation can wrap the building. So I was really inspired by the Louis Vuitton Pavilion by Franco Gehry, and then we went and identified the site, and basically this is the plan. And it was not so much about the plan for the studio as opposed to what it was about the detailing. So our design basically wraps around the building. We basically identified what would be the functionality of this building, basically a performance area or a movie theater, a food court, the exhibition area, the mini movie theater, and then the pattern basically wraps around the building. So here is our final model. It's still, and yes, it is displayed somewhere in the US even today. Not this one, but the metal one, the one which is cut in metal. And yes, and again we have a section. I think for this we used AutoCAD. We had to we were not very familiar with Rhino at that time. We weren't sure we could use Rhino. So this is an AutoCAD section. Again, if you notice, there is a similar kind of a way in which I designed the portfolio, where the section occupies most of the space in my sheet. And actually, let me just see if I can find it. well, this is not that section, but this is that other sectional elevation. So yes, it goes across my sheet. And I do know that whenever anybody looks at my portfolio, they always notice this about the section, and people really like to look at the drawing. And then this is a parametric design studio. Basically, I studied Grasshopper, which was an optional class for us, but I really always wanted to study Grasshopper. So yes, this is a Grasshopper project. And then this is just another elective where basically I did these graphical representations. I really love doing graphics. So I'm not going to go into the detail, but this is just like a utopian city that you can imagine. What if you would superimpose various utopian images on top of each other, what would you come up with? So this is that. And then this is just another class which I took up, which was called origami engineering. Oh, one really interesting thing that did happen in this class was that me and my teammate got selected from our university to go to Japan, entirely sponsored for free. So that was really nice. I was not very interested in taking up this class, but my professor insisted very last minute that, Kashmira, why don't you just take this class? You might get to go to Japan. So I just enrolled for it, and I did get selected to go to Japan. And no, it was not just about folding paper. This was in fact a very difficult class because it was a engineering class. So we had integration and derivatives. I don't think I studied integration after my 12th standard, and then suddenly in my masters I had to do triple integration. You know, where you have one integration, two integration. We had like 3 integrations. So this is just one of the graphical things, but no, we had to do triple integration. It was a very difficult class. I kind of regretted taking it, but then when I found out that I was going to Japan, then I was like, hey, you know what, it's okay, I'm happy about it. And thank you. Bye. As always, I really appreciate you guys watching my videos. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to my channel and leave a comment below and let me know what you would like to watch next. Bye.